Hey everybody, it's me, fregrowli here, and today we're going to move forward with a medable series titled the fregrowli formuoli. We'll take a look at my methods for making medibles, including peppermint bark, cereal bars, coconut oil, gummies, hard candies, candy caps, enchiladas, and more. Leave a comment below with your favorite edibles for medicating and what your optimal dose is. I find mine ranges from about 40 milligrams up to 250 milligrams of total cannabinoids. I've had several requests lately for the peppermint bark I made around Christmas time, and although we're well into the new year now, I do have footage of the process, so I figured I'd finally share it. It's a very simple recipe that anyone can make at home as long as you have some sort of hash available. You could probably infuse butter or coconut oil and mix that into the chocolate, but I find that bubble hash, dry sift, or oven purged BHO works best. Just don't forget to decarboxylate your hash. I prefer to go with 25 minutes at 225 degrees Fahrenheit. Speaking of what works best, this might just be my personal preference, but this white chocolate classic recipe from Lindt works perfectly. It's very creamy, carries the flavor of your terpenes, and it's all around great for baking and making chocolates. Their milk chocolate is great as well, but if you're trying to capture either the flavor of your cannabis or the flavor of the other elements of your recipe, which is peppermint in this case, I would recommend sticking with the white chocolate. While you could just crush up a bunch of candy canes, I found these 9-ounce containers of crushed peppermint candy and decided to use them. I will be mixing the candy in with the chocolate to give it some texture, as well as sprinkling it across the top for better handling and bag appeal. Our third and final ingredient is, of course, our hash. As I mentioned before, I use a variety of hash for medibles, and they all test differently in cannabinoid potency. Our dry sift comes out at around 55% total cannabinoids, bubble hash at around 65%, and BHO comes in at anywhere from 65% to upwards of 80%. Since we're talking what I call food grade BHO, and we're only focusing on THC, I find you can estimate the final potency to be around 55%. If we're talking formuolis, that means we take our total weight of our hash in milligrams, multiply that by 55% or 0.55, and you get the total potency of that batch. For example, let's assume we have 10 grams of BHO to make medibles with, or 10,000 milligrams. If we multiply that by 0.55, we get 5,500 milligrams. Now that we have our total available cannabinoid potency, we can decide how many medibles to make based on our dosage. Keeping it at 100 milligrams makes it easy, so if we divide 5,500 milligrams by 100 milligrams, we can make precisely 55 doses. Now, this is sort of a backwards way of calculating a recipe, but it should give you an understanding of how we determine dosage. What it leaves out is the entire rest of your medible recipe, this time the chocolate and peppermint candy. If you don't take into consideration the weight or volume of your other materials, you could end up either only having tiny bite-sized pieces that are incredibly potent but leave you somewhat unsatisfied, or have to eat half a dozen brownies just to get the effect you are looking for. Depending on your recipe, the latter could result in some rather unhealthy eating, while the former might result in some very heavy sleep. Since these chocolate bars I am using are 125 grams each, I decided to shoot for about 40 grams of chocolate per 100 milligram dose. Now that we've decided on our ingredients and calculated our estimated dosage, we can move forward with cooking. As you have already seen, I unwrapped, broke up, and placed all of my chocolate bars into my crock pot. It is important to keep it on low and slowly melt your chocolate so you do not burn it. Stirring often will help, but generally speaking, as soon as a portion of your batch burns, the entire thing is going to taste awful. Once your chocolate is melted, dump in your BHO, dry sift, or whatever hash you're using. Make sure you mix it very well so you can get even doses in the end. It is important to get a consistent amount in each edible so you do not over or underdose each serving. Once I am confident that everything is thoroughly blended, I mix around half of my crushed peppermint candy pieces into the chocolate. As soon as the candy is blended, it's time to pour the batch into your molds. I would highly recommend using silicone molds for individual chocolates, but a large cookie sheet works perfectly for the bark style chocolate. Just pour your chocolate candy BHO mix into the cookie sheet, spread it evenly, then sprinkle the rest of your peppermint candy across the top. After about 15 to 30 minutes in the fridge, it will be hard enough to simply break up into smaller pieces. Unfortunately, I didn't end up filming that portion of the process, but I do have a couple pictures to share. Make sure you work quickly using gloves and in a cool environment if possible. This chocolate will melt in your hands and your mouth, so store it in your fridge until you are ready to enjoy it. I decided to make these again to get the finished product itself tested at the lab. I shot for a slightly higher potency, but since we have results, we can control the serving size precisely. and here they are from PSI Labs. My 51 gram sample resulted in about 138 milligrams of THC. If we wanted to portion this into a serving that resulted in exactly 100 milligrams of THC, we just plug our numbers back into the formuoli. If we take 138 milligrams and divide that by 51 grams, we see that each gram of peppermint bark contains 2.7 milligrams of THC. Now all we must do is divide our desired dose of 100 milligrams by 2.7 milligrams, and we determine that we need 37 grams of peppermint bark per quote-unquote 100 milligrams serving. This peppermint bark has quickly become a favorite of my patients as well as my own, and while it definitely seems to be Christmas themed, I know I can infuse other candy into chocolates to come up with all sorts of holiday oriented chocolate bark, so this really is something you can make year round. What is your favorite edible recipe? Do you like chocolates and candy, or do you prefer to cook with infused butter or oils? Some say medibles have never worked for them. Has that been the case for you? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching this episode of the fregrowli formuoli. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, check me out on Instagram at fregrowli, fregrowli.com, and until next time, good luck and grow big.